All right, welcome to the Witcher Niagara crash course. Thanks again for signing up. My name is Pitela and I will be your instructor. So just want to tell you that if you are brand new to Niagara, there's nothing to be nervous about or worried about. I made it very beginner friendly. Basically, the first video, I will give you an introduction to Niagara, and then we will slowly introduce Niagara fluids, make our first smoke simulation. I will show you how to use the sequencer, import some characters from Mixamo, and then we will slowly introduce how to add turbulence for more realism, how to do fire, how to do sparks, and gradually build your skill set up one video after another. So once again, I do recommend that you watch the videos in order and that you watch the whole training to get the most out of it. As always, remember this is not work. We're just having fun making some cool simulations and making some cool stuff that you can post on social media. So make sure you have Unreal Engine open and let's jump right into it. Okay, so I will be recording this course in Unreal Engine 5.7. You are good to follow along in 5.6 and 5.5 as well. So I'll just click launch. After it loads up, you can use your existing project or make a new one. So I'll just create a blank project, select the location, give it a name and click create. Once it loads up, first let's go to edit, plugins and search for Niagara and enable the Niagara Fluids plugin and Niagara Sim caching. You can also search for Nanite and enable the Nanite displaced mesh, which we will use later to have some nice detailed ground. It's gonna ask you to restart the editor, so just restart it and come back. And then go to edit, project settings, and search for auto exposure. And you can disable the auto exposure so that the brightness doesn't change on its own for you and your lighting will match mine if you're gonna follow along exactly. Now, after you've done all that, we can open the content drawer down here and click on dock in layout so that it's always down here. And I will right click and make a new folder and call it Witcher course. Then you can right click, set color, and give it this green color, let's say. And then you can right click and say add to favorites, and it will show up in your favorites here so we can always easily find it. Then you can open the Witcher course folder and right click, new folder, let's call this one meshes. Then make another one sequences, another one called VFX, materials, and then one more called levels. And so I will go to File, New Level, and create a basic level, Create, which will give you this. I like to just move these icons out of the way. You can just increase the location on Z to sort of move them out of the frame. And then go to File, Save Current Level As. Let's go to Witcher Course, Levels, and call it level underscore 01 underscore Niagara intro. Save. So if you've taken any Unreal Engine course with me before, you're familiar with my workflow. Basically, every effect in this course will live inside of its own level. That's a very easy way to keep things organized and separated. So now we can go to our VFX folder, right click and make a new Niagara system. You'll be presented with this window, which shows you all the available templates that you can use. You can see they are separated in standard Niagara or just the fluids templates, which are then separated into 3D gas, 2D gas, liquid, and some other examples. So feel free to click through these. But for us, I will just say create empty Niagara system down here and call it ns underscore intro. Double click to open. So you are now inside of Niagara, which is Unreal Engine's primary VFX system. And I like to have my simulations against a black background. So you can go to Window, Preview Scene Settings. You can uncheck Show Environment, and then for the environment color, pure black, say OK, and you can close this. So by default, you have this Niagara Overview node. That's just a system node that's always there. We're not gonna touch that right now. Instead, we need to create our own emitter. So I will right click and say add minimal emitter. We're using this one because it already has some modules in here pre-made, which makes our life a little easier. and I will just hit F2 and rename it as emitter underscore basic. So right now, because I have the entire emitter selected, on the right hand side in the details panel, I'm seeing the settings for all of the modules inside of the emitter. I can also just select the individual groups. So let's say the emitter update group, and it will show me the settings for all of the modules inside of that group. Or I can just select the individual modules to just show the settings for that particular module. So to get going, let's create some particles. So I will go under emitter update and click on the plus sign here and search for spawn and create a spawn rate module. This gives birth to particles over time. So let's set it to about 100. Now it looks like there's just one particle, but that's because they're being born right on top of each other. So under initialize particle, we can go to sprite size mode and set it to uniform. This lets us control the size of the particles, the lifetime, and some other attributes. So now I would like to give these particles some initial velocity so they actually shoot up. So under particle spawn, I'll click on the plus sign and search for add velocity. And you will learn about many of these modules throughout the course. So let's add velocity, and it's gonna give you a warning. So it wants basically the solve forces and velocity module so it can calculate the velocity. So you can just click fix issue, but they're going up in a straight line. So we can change the velocity mode from linear to in cone. And the cone axis should be 0 on the X and 1 on the Z. So they're actually going up, and we can increase the velocity speed to about 100. So now that I have them going up, I want them to fall back down under the force of gravity. So I'm gonna add the gravity force, but notice I will be adding it in the particle update group now, not particle spawn. This is the main important difference to understand about Niagara emitters, is these two groups. Particle spawn is what happens to the particles when they're initially born. So when the particle is initially born, I'm giving it a lifetime, I'm giving it a size, and in our case, we're giving it some initial velocity, only when they're born. In particle update, I'm changing the particles over time. So what happens to them over the course of their lifetime? And so if I want them to be influenced by gravity over the course of their lifetime, I need to add the gravity module under the particle update group. So I'll click on the plus sign here and search for gravity force. Now the gravity is pretty strong by default, so we need to increase the velocity to get them to shoot back up and then fall down. So about 600 for the velocity speed. So back in our level, I can now drag our Niagara system into the scene. And here are my particles, but they're not colliding with the ground. For that, we can add a collision module. So again, under particle update, because I want them to collide all the time over the course of their lifetime. So I will add the collision module, and they're gonna start bouncing around. Now how much they bounce is controlled with restitution. So we can set that to maybe just 0.2. And so now we have the particles nicely colliding with geometry in our scene. But when they die, they just kind of disappear. But I would like them to scale down before they disappear, so it's more elegant. So under particle update, because I want to change the size over time, I will search for sprite size. And I want the scale sprite size module. Now by default, it has this curve mapped on a normalized age. So normalized age means that the age of the particle is mapped on a value between 0 and 1. So even if I change the lifetime here from 5 seconds to 10 seconds, the graph will still only go from 0 to 1 because it's basically percentage. So at 0% of the lifetime, the particle is invisible, and at 100% of the lifetime, or a value of 1, it's its full size. That's what this graph means. And so I will set the lifetime back to 5 seconds. And what I want is for the particles to slowly scale up and then slowly scale down. So you can use one of these presets, but we will just create it by hand so that you get familiar with how this graph works. So I will right click and say add key. And so I want the particles to get big pretty early after they're born. So maybe a value of 0.2. and a value of 1. And then I'll create another key and move the last one down to 0. So this will be 1 and 0. And then you can do Control A and hit 2 on your keyboard to make them smooth keyframes. And so now if you look at this, they start invisible, then they quickly get their full size, and then they slowly scale down before they die. So we are controlling the size of the particles over time with this graph. So now I can simply grab the Niagara system and start moving this around. But you notice I'm moving the emitter, but not the entire simulation. If I want to move the entire simulation, I need to go under Properties and say Local Space. Now when I move it, I'm moving the entire thing. This is going to be important when we work on that ring of fire simulation and some other effects. So I want you to be aware of how local space works. So here you go. This is your introduction to Niagara. We created our first Niagara particle system. We learned the difference between particle spawn and particle update. We created new modules such as add velocity, gravity, collision. We changed the sprite size over time. We learned how local space works. So this is all you need to get going. And in the next video, we're gonna introduce Niagara fluids and a simple smoke simulation into the mix. I'll see you there.